Okay, the book in question is How to Play a Necromancer's Theremin. I could only find Theremin on YouTube, so rather than just show, you can look up on YouTube, but I think I could show you how easy it is to do. If you have it here, I think I gave you the right, more or less the right hand movements. This is Rick Harsh. I'm reviewing a book called How to Play a Necromancer's Theremin, written by Chase Griffin and Christina Quay. And I think the main thing I want to tell you before I get into the meat and the vegetables of this book is that the great Indian philosopher of the 20th century, teacher, philosopher, translator, author of a compendium, very big compendium of Indian philosophy, Radhakrishnan, says, and this is word for word, never forgotten it, in the nature of things, a priesthood is always demoralizing. And I have taken that to mean some very obvious things about religions, because it's priests technically, I think, are limited to the Catholic religion, but he was talking about Brahmin priests in the Indian religion, and basically, a process that occurs in everything that has inspiration, or that is founded on inspiration, and that would include all of the arts. And I think that is as good a summary as any of what happens to writing, painting, to everything that solidifies into what is paradoxically called a movement, because it's basically applied where the movement stops. And this is something that happens in every art, I believe, and in fiction, which is the one that I engage in and know a little bit about. You'll find resistance every step of the way. I think there are some really wonderful reviews that attempt a shredding of Ulysses, for instance. That was probably the most stunning work, in that somehow I don't know anymore much of the history. I haven't read about Joyce for a long time, but um, I don't know why um, or how that book became so important, so well known. I suppose because the center of literature for some time was Europe, and in particular Paris, and people came to know of him from books that were nothing at all like Ulysses, but he always managed to get attention. I don't know, but because it could easily, if Ulysses came out today, or the equivalent of Ulysses, it would uh, not probably not get that much attention. But if I move this, you lose the monkey. But the lighting seems a little bit better. Maybe that's already better. So um, I say that, but then at the same time, I'm thinking Infinite Jest probably has the attention that Ulysses had, or at least enough that we could say that it's a parallel sort of event. But the main thing is that um, the literature, for literature to live, to thrive, it has to change, not necessarily evolve. And that's one thing that I love about it. You do not lose, for instance, by appreciating both Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake, you do not have to get rid of, um, oh shit, what is the well, Joseph Conrad, for one. I was thinking of going back a few more years, and who wrote Silas Marner? Um, she's anyway. The point is, I think, well taken by me. So this is the result of the freeing up of the novel form and of literature in general. It says here on the back, and I'm going to have to the oh, okay, spellbinding fiction. Luckily, that's written by Autumn Levy, who's actually in the book. He's the uh, a founding member of the Order of the Cacti, and there again we have an echo of America and the Cult of the Cactus Boots. Now, this was not written in time to have been derived from that, but there are many echoes between the two. The word pataphysics is used quite often, and there's a lot of talk about reality and what it is. But essentially, it's a book about a bunch of fans of a novelist named Rocco Appleby. If I have it in my Rocco Appleby, yes, and they're the value of the book to me lies in the constant invention, written at a level that has always one foot in sheer nonsense. Sometimes, if it was at that level the whole time, I would throw the book out. But there's always the other foot in in pseudo intellect, and I say pseudo intellect because it makes fun of itself constantly, but it is by nature of staying within the confines of academic intellectual um, satire. It's the level is raised and it becomes very interesting and very funny. There one of my I think there are a few neologisms in here. One of them is egregore, like egregious and gore, egregore. Um, maybe maybe they mean it the way I take it. Maybe they don't. But it's basically a book about a bunch of people running around engaged in worship of Rocco Appleby. And throughout the book, they move from one scene to another, returning to old scenes, and a closer look at the book might show that there's some logic to it, might not. but you don't really care while you're reading it. You're reading it to see what they invent next. And some of it is fantastic, some of it's not so fantastic. But the freedom and the energy is what makes me happy while I'm reading the book. And I don't know if I did not underline enough, but I did underline. And so what I'm going to do, because I didn't sleep well the last 2 nights, but I want to get this done so I can move on with other things. You see, that's the sneeze of a bad sleeper. If I don't find one of these things I underlined soon, I'll just read you a random passage. But I think I'm going to get to here. I see underlining here, and this is much to the point. Somebody is talking and uses the word glossolalia, and someone says, "What is glossolalia?" It's like speaking in tongues. It is the spontaneous discovery of the universal text that exists just below our layer of actuality. The spontaneous discovery of the universal text that exists just below our layer of actuality. That is a thematic, a genuine thematic notion this book relies on. But it doesn't, it plays with it. It plays with its themes. It rides its themes like roller coasters or something like that. Here's one that I was going to prepare this a little bit better a few days ago before the bad sleeping spell hit, but they reach an important dwelling in Paris, I believe. To gaze upon this old dwelling was to gaze upon a petri dish viewing itself. Now, it reminded me, the way the sentence starts reminded me of Fall of the House of Usher. You know, that sentence that ends with illimitable gloom. And it starts out like it might take itself that seriously, but then you get to gaze upon a petri dish viewing itself, and that again, that self-referential thing. We don't know. It occurred to me many times, but I didn't want to stop. I want to rush on to the next book. So I'll admit that I didn't want to stop and think much through, but I think we're reading a book either written by Rocco Appleby, or all of Rocco Appleby is written by these people, but I'm not sure. There's perhaps a revelation at the end. I'm not sure, but it's not spellbinding fiction. You don't read it to see what these people will do. They're named, and they're consistent with who they're supposed to be, but they're not all that clearly delineated. They all go through the same types of things, except for one, the guy who turns into a human alligator. I don't believe that's a spoiler, because the authors are from Tampa. There's going to be alligators. Okay. Another one. Another quote here is, I popped up from behind it to mouth the narration behind the TV that always has the docufiction or document. What did they call it? Docu something. A interview with Rocco Appleby. I wasn't a formless as I did it like I wasn't a formless being encased within a fat tornado clock, but some fleshly golem of a squawk box. So the way they play with metaphor throughout is inspired and at times utterly brilliant. And when it's not, it's simply not. Like, I mean, if you go through any novel, even Antunes, who's metaphorically among the best ever, probably, you're not stricken by every single one. But what I think is most important is that they took an attitude I underlined Secret Society Order of the Cacti just to make sure I remembered to mention the that they're very much it it's as if they were disciples of Friedenberg, or Friedenberg wrote to summarize something that was going on that includes this book. Probably also, I got this book in the mail from the authors, along with the Restored Naked Lunch. So if your Naked Lunch is not restored, maybe give it a smash a banana in it or something, and get it, revived. I think it needs revision. Revivification. See, I shouldn't do these when I'm so fucking tired, but I had to do it. And I had to read it. And I mean, not because they gave it to me. I have a book sitting over next to my bed that I started reading. I thought, this is interesting. It's not bad. And I still need to read more before I write the author, who probably forgot he sent it to me a year and a half ago. But he did, and I haven't. I'm a failure. Anyway, what I want to say is I'm really glad that fiction is now accepting a broad spectrum of books. And it might even get me to read more speculative fiction or science fiction, which I never do, and I never have, except when it's something I had to read Zach Tanner's Oscar. But all that books like that, Oscar Submerges, all that did. We're going to have it back in print, hopefully in June. All that did is make me think, okay, I like this book, but it didn't make me think I got to read more science fiction. And and the same. There's the next science fiction book I read was this one, Some Features of Living Matter in the Neighborhood of the Sun. Another futuristic book, and about climate change, and I think an excellent book. And but I didn't think maybe I should give more of these speculative fiction books, these science fiction books, these futuristic books. Maybe I should give them but this is actually not science fiction per se, although I think Rocco wrote science fiction, but it's more, you get the references to all kinds of stuff in here, but all of a kind. Robert Anton Wilson, Wilhelm Reich. There's a mention of Dada in here. I think only one. Wittgenstein also. Now, let me I'm going to close out with a paragraph that I thought I would mark because it's a representative paragraph in its way. The strain of all these combined timelines, this unstable mode, syncopated as a perpetually shattering encrusted mirror. It was a form of music that involved not just sound, but all senses, as we scurried on a crooked turntable, and all barriers became the compounding of contingency and irrecoverability. I bobbed my head from inside the void to the disjointed and inverted tones of converging time. These convergences grumbled as one beast tied to a fence post, dancing the death waltz of a terminal domestic animal. That made me laugh. Made of broken mirror shards, tiny pieces of all of us puzzled together in infinitely ever-changing configurations. A four-dimensional beast who carried the emotional weight of every possible face all at once. An animal desperate for its owner to put it out of its misery. That loops back to the terminal domestic animal very nicely. I think that's a brilliant paragraph. And that you come across them here. There are ticks in the writing, no accidental ticks. The plural is usually rendered with a bunch of Z's. that didn't do anything for me. But I don't care either. It's not, I would never say, this inspiration, habit, whatever of yours, change it. As an editor, I would never do that. I'd say, okay, it's the way you're doing it, fine. But I have to admit, as an old timer, my favorite moments in the book were moments of linguistic hijinks that pleased me on a more poetic and philosophical level. And there is poetry and philosophy in here, and there's mad hijinks. And I highly recommend not just this book, but um, join me on my retreat into old William Burroughs. It's time. They sent me Naked Lunch, and I also, since then, I ordered the Nova trilogy and his biography. So I'm going full bore into Burroughs. And that makes me think of one other thing. The reading, um, we should always, I think all of us should read as much as possible of various kinds of fiction. And my inspiration there is Stephen Moore, who not only would, if he knew, probably, give me a metaphorical whipping and say, you haven't read Naked Lunch ever? Well, I don't think I did. I mean, I might have, but I think I'd remember. It's just one of those things. Of course, you'll read Naked Lunch before you're 25, before you're 30, for sure. And he also, and I've mentioned this before, he also talked about the necessity of rereading. And the book that I most need to reread probably right now is William Gass's The Tunnel. But somebody, I gave it to somebody before I came to that realization. So I will reread it because I owe it to the self that's been in my head, scolded by Stephen Moore. But point being, Moore reads everything, and that's what makes him a great reader. He doesn't he judges everything he reads, probably like everybody does, but he doesn't do it beforehand. He reads it and then he does so. And I think if he read this, I think he would appreciate the energy and spirit with which it was wrote, along with the history that literary history that has led up to the need for people to write this free, crazy stuff. That's my 23 minutes. Jesus, sorry, I meant to go 5.